Oh, okay. All right. Um, so my name is David Glowacki. Hello. Yes. Yes. Good. Okay. So yeah, my name is David Glowacki, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit today about a project that actually lets people explore what it would be like to be on the nano level. And so nano is a word in chemistry and physics that means about the size of an atom. So I'm based jointly at Stanford University, which is just down the road from here, and also Bristol University, which is in England. And I'll tell you a little bit about a project that we've been developing over the past few years that literally lets people have the experience of manipulating atoms and molecules. So a little bit of a warning before I start here is that the name of the technology that we've developed in order to give people this experience has a little bit of a complicated name, and it's called danceroom. That's easy, but the hard word is spectroscopy. And so people a lot of times see this, they call it spectroscopy. I've heard all kinds of funny variations. The word is spectroscopy, and so spectroscopy is a science word that has a complicated name, but it has a pretty easy definition, and it literally means the use of light to obtain information about matter. And all of you actually have spectrometers, 2 of them, that you utilize every single day, and they're called your eyes. And so your eyes are actually doing exactly the same sorts of physics that a lot of what scientists call spectrometers would be doing every single day. And so generally, instead of calling this danceroom spectroscopy all the time, because that's a little bit of a tongue twister, I'll just abbreviate it as DS. And so what I want to communicate to everybody here, perhaps the most important thing about nanoscale physics, is that the microscopic world of atoms and molecules is dynamic. So it's not stationary. Even diamond, which is the hardest substance that we know of, and which I have a simulation of diamond on the screen right now. If you could see diamond on the atomic level, you would see it perpetually wiggling and jiggling and vibrating. And there is a famous physicist that probably a lot of people here have heard of called Richard Feynman, and he has a very famous statement where he said, all of nature can be explained by the wigglings and jigglings of atoms. And so I always find it absolutely fascinating that a substance like diamond, which is the hardest thing that we know of, if you could see it, it's engaged in this perpetual atomic dance. It's perpetually dynamic. And so nature is one massive perpetual motion machine on the atomic level. Experience from everything else around you. So all the atoms that are moving in this simulation are experiencing energetic interactions, force interactions from every single other atom in the simulation, and that's what drives their motion. So you really can think of it as a dance, although it's a dance where the choreography of every single atom is tightly linked to the choreography of every single other atom. So you might think, well, why would somebody link sort of nanoscale atomic physics with dance? And it's kind of interesting. So when chemists and biochemists talk about the motion of the atomic world, they often use dance analogies. And so if you actually just look at some recent papers that people have published in the last couple years, and if you just search for titles that have chemistry, physics, biology, and dance in the titles, you find some really funny titles, right? So one of my favorite was somebody said, single molecules dancing on a tabletop. Okay, so if atoms and molecules are doing tabletop dancing, I always think it's probably only a matter of time before maybe they're doing something like pole dancing, right? Another one is the molecular dance floor. Choreographing an enzyme dance. Watching polymers dance. Okay? And so the way that things dance depends on their energetic interactions. And so I really wanna what happened with this was we were hacking around with Kinects for a long time. and we thought, well, we were getting images back from the Kinect, and also we were using some depth sensors that came prior to the Kinect to play around with this stuff, and we started getting images of people. And so this is an image of somebody who's doing something like this. And we started looking at these images, and we thought, wow, you know, these images really remind me a lot of an energy field. And so as I've just told you, energy fields guide the way that atoms and molecules dance. And so we had this idea, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could use our energy fields and turn our energy fields into an input that could actually make a molecular simulation move and dance. So we could actually use our own motion, and if we could somehow take this image, convert it into an energy field, we could literally embed ourselves in a simulation of the atomic world. And so that was really kind of the point. That was really where this came from. And so we started hacking around with things. We didn't really know where it was going. And we started messing around with these Kinects, and we came up with some math that basically let us figure out how to take human depth images, turn them into energy fields, and then embed them in an atomic simulation. Okay, and so I just have a very short schematic of how this works. It's a very crude little schematic with little stick figure people, but I think it gets the point across. So what we have is it's all run off of a high performance workstation. So this is a computer, and what we've done is we've actually, instead of the computer using the graphics cards inside of it just to do graphics, we've hacked it with a language called OpenCL that actually lets you write all your algorithms on the graphics cards. So this little computer, which is about this big, runs at 10 teraflops. Okay, so this is about 10,000 times faster than your laptop or something. And this is necessary to do all the real-time image processing and physics solution that's required to let you dance with atoms and molecules. So what happens is we map a space with a set of 360 sensors, and there I've shown an array of Kinects. So our little supercomputer actually lets you talk to 10 Kinects simultaneously at 60 hertz, all in real time, and solve the quantum dynamics equations for almost 10,000 atoms in real time. Okay. So the computer takes the images of the people, but instead of the computer interpreting the people as people, like little stick figures, which is what most people do with Kinect, we have some math that lets you interpret the people as fields. Okay, and then so we take the image of the people's fields, and then we put the fields into an atomic simulation. And now what happens is that the people's fields can guide and manipulate the simulation in real time just via motion. So it's literally like a dance game where your dancing motion controls the motion of atoms and molecules. And there's another thing that happens. So you control the graphics on the screen, but you also control the sounds that you can hear. And so what we do is in real time, we analyze all the waves that people make as they move through the atomic simulation, and we turn those wave vibrations into sounds that you can hear. So there's a suite of audio processing algorithms that actually do all this stuff in real time. And so the picture here in the lower right-hand corner, it's a little bit hard to see, but it shows this 360 array of Kinects that we can use to actually map spaces in 3D in 360 degrees. So I have a quick video here that shows you what it looks like, and I have some sound on this video. So what I'm going to show you in this video is a very early prototype, and what you're going to see is there's going to be a bunch of atoms that are swirling around. In this case, we're simulating a quantum liquid, and you're going to see 5 dancers are going to run into space, and all of a sudden, all the particles are going to self-assemble inside of their energy fields, and you'll see their energy fields on the back of the screen, and you'll see the dancers in the foreground. And as the dancers start swaying, the supercomputer is going to pick up their fields, and it's going to say, oh, I have 5 fields. All the fields are clustering atoms inside of the bodies, and I'm going to turn each of those dancers' vibrations into a different sound, because I can monitor the waveforms of each of those dancers, and I'm going to turn those into sound. And so what you're going to see is the dancers are going to run on, and they're going to start swaying, and they're going to create a sound, and each of the dancers is a different chord in this simulation. So I'll let it run, and you'll see how it works. It sounds a bit hard to hear. Can we have a little bit more sound? Now you just hear the sound of the one dancer. The highs are a little bit hard to hear here, so you can't hear it, but all you hear is her sound right now. Okay, so I'm going to move on. One of my favorite things about this simulation is that occasionally you see the particles hop from dancers' fields. And that's actually from a really cool phenomenon called quantum tunneling. Right? So when you have two fields with a classical energy barrier between them, it's classically impossible for one particle to get to the other field because there's a barrier. But quantum mechanically, there's a finite probability that one particle can hop to another field. And so this is something I actually use for my students to illustrate quantum tunneling to them. So another application so I showed you a sort of dance application there, but there's another application, which is we kind of figured out once we had this, that we could let people start to manipulate real protein molecules. So protein molecules are the molecular machines inside of your body that basically do all the work that your body needs to work. So everyone here has heard of DNA. So DNA holds the code for making protein molecules. And so I'm going to show you here a simulation of a protein molecule of the sort that the Chemistry Nobel Prize was won for. Actually, last October, the Chemistry Nobel Prize was won for people that figure out how to simulate protein molecules. And so here we have two players that are going to be playing with an interactive simulation of one of the proteins inside of your cells. And so what they've done is they've taken the protein and they've made a necklace shape with it, and then they're going to grab the ends and they're going to pull it apart. And it turns out that actually what they're doing is they're simulating the sorts of experiments that people do with something called atomic force microscopy, which does exactly the same sort of things.
That's pretty nice. Something.
Okay. So the cool thing about that simulation is that if I was to simulate that protein making a necklace and then being stretched apart on a computer without any sort of human acceleration, it would take me about 10,000 times more compute power. So this is actually a way that people can actually do protein structure discovery by using their energy fields and effectively dancing. Okay, so it's kind of an interesting thing. I want to show you another picture, which is we made an atmospheric simulation of this. So this shows, I told you that we can image spaces in 360 degrees with this little supercomputer that we built. And this actually shows a dome. We did this at the London 2012 Olympics. And there's a ring of children holding hands. There's about 21 kids in the picture. And there's a set of sensors that you can't see. They're right behind the little girl that's in the foreground. But the whole entire space is being imaged in 3D, in 360 degrees, in real time. And as the kids hold hands in the space, they can manipulate all the atoms and molecules and make them flow through their fields. And in this case, we were actually simulating the Earth's atmosphere. So O2, N2, H2O, and CO2. And I don't have any videos of this one, but as the kids would move in circles, they can actually create all the sound that's created that you hear in the entire dome. And then finally, one of the sort of unexpected applications of this, which kind of came out of nowhere, which we didn't expect when we started hacking around with this stuff, was that serious dancers, started to get really interested in it. And so what we did was we the dancers said, hey, we would like to make a performance using this because we know how to manipulate our bodies really well and use our emotion to do really interesting things. And so the dancers were actually able to play this like an instrument, both a visual instrument and also as a sonic instrument. And so we made a performance which is sort of touring all around Europe at the moment, which is called Hidden Fields. And what happens is it's a performance that's driven by these atomic physics algorithms, where the dancers use their energy fields to actually create all the graphics and all the sound that's you hear in the piece. So it's actually the motion of the dancers' fields that drive the entire piece. And as far as I know, it's the first dance performance in the world that's driven by algorithms and quantum dynamics. So I have a few pictures that I just think are really stunning to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. And so here you can actually see the dancers' field silhouettes in the background. Here's quite a nice one. There's sort of a swirling vortex of particles in the middle, and the one dancer is sort of sucking energy out of the middle of her vortex as she positions her field. Another thing that we've done is we've actually used accelerometer sensors on the dancer's wrists so that they can control the physics parameters in real time. And so what this dancer's doing with the sensor on her wrist is she's controlling whether or not her field in the simulation is attractive or repulsive. So she can suck all the energy into herself, or she can make everything fly away from herself. It's a lot of fun. So I have a really quick little trailer just kind of showing. So we performed this in London at the Barbican Art Center recently, and I have a quick video just showing some shots from this dance performance. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up now, and then I'll take some questions. But before I finish up, I just want to say that there's a team of about 20 people that have been involved in developing this. So from the first time when I was sort of sitting in my room just hacking around with how do you get a human energy field to manipulate a molecular stimulation, it's grown a lot. And there's a massive team now that's kind of gotten interested in who's working on this, and some really fantastic people. And then finally, I want to thank all people who have funded it. And the cool thing about this list of funding is it's really half arts people and half science people. So I've paid computer scientists from grants from the Arts Council, and I've paid artists and dancers from grants from the sort of the Physics Research Council. So I think this is kind of a cool thing, really bridging this divide of arts and science. And finally, I want to thank you all. And if anyone's interested in this, there's a few articles where we've published a lot of how we've done this. There's a fantastic book that was published recently called Molecular Aesthetics, which was published by MIT Press last year, about a lot of people that are doing interesting things in this sort of bridge between the nanoworld and artistic representations. And this paper at the bottom in Faraday Discussions publishes a lot of the algorithms that we used to pull all this stuff off. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Yeah.
What are the future steps in your research?
So the question is, what are the future steps in my research? And so one of the things we've done with this is we've made a lot of progress in. So I work in a computer science department, and one of the things we've done is we made a lot of progress in interactive high performance computing. So we've actually published a lot of the algorithms because doing this in real time has been quite a challenge. So on a sort of fundamental level, we're looking at how to push this sort of stuff forward just to figure out how to make computers go really fast and do the analysis in real time. Another thing that we're doing, though, is we're trying to figure out how to turn this into a game that we could actually let people help us solve scientific structure problems. So maybe you've heard of a program called Foldit, for example. And so we're actually looking, Foldit did this in a very different approach than we're doing it, but we're looking at if this was in a sort of game format, would there be the possibility of people helping us solve some of the big problems in protein structure prediction? Because even the world's biggest supercomputers can't solve these problems. So we need a kind of new approach, and perhaps human intuition could actually help us make faster progress that way. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, if there's nothing, yes?
Are you working at all on the actual manipulation of creating nanomaterials?
So the question is whether or not we're working on the creation of new nanomaterials. Being able to control the formation of new nanomaterials. So certainly that's one of the things that as these algorithms get faster and faster, we'll be able to do. So at the moment, we're able to simulate things like simple biomolecules, we can simulate water, and we can simulate these sorts of things. But in principle, as this stuff gets better and better, there's certainly the possibility that we could discover new things. And one of the things that people do at the moment is they'll just tell a computer to randomly try to discover things. But computers are kind of stupid, right? They just blindly go down lots of pathways that lead nowhere. And so one of the exciting things here is that if people could use their sort of intuition to develop a feel for how things react, then it could possibly lead to the discovery, for example, of new drug molecules, new materials, and things like this. Although probably the algorithms that we're working on are going to have to get quite a bit faster before that's something that we could think about. But we can scale this up now because we're working on these GPUs with this GPU accelerated computing. We can scale this up to massive supercomputers. So we can actually run this stuff interactively on some of the world's biggest computers, which is where a lot of my research takes place. But that requires very fast networks. And so a high-performance networking is something that we're thinking about very seriously for exactly that reason. Yeah. Sorry? Where's the code posted? The code, if you want the code, then you have to send me. It's in those papers, so it's on Bitbucket. But it's if you want it, you have to send me an email, and then I can let you know. Yeah. Yep.
How is it that the body of the dancers interacts with the algorithm that you have? It just speeds it up.
So the question is, how is it that the body of the dancer interacts with the algorithm that we have? So the way that it works is all of the atoms in the simulation feel a force. And conventionally, the way that a molecular simulation works is the force that all the atoms feel only depend on the energy fields of all the other atoms in the space. So normally that's it, right? And so when you run a simulation, all the atoms dance, but they only dance depending on what the other atoms are doing. And so what we have here is we import the depth information, and then we write a force down that the dancer's body can exert on the atoms. And the way that actually works, that algorithm, is from a field of, it's actually from theoretical physics. It's from an area called semi-classical molecular dynamics. It's kind of complicated, but if you're really interested in the math, then that bottom paper there, which is an open source paper, actually describes all the integrals that you have to do in real time to drive this algorithm and let the bodies of the dancers manipulate the atoms. So, I mean, briefly, it involves writing an average over what's called the spherical Gaussian. And so you integrate over the spherical Gaussian, and then you get this gentle, nice motion. But there's a few tricks to get it to be physically rigorous that you have to invoke, and that paper kind of describes how that happens. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap up because the next speaker is gonna come on in a few minutes. So thank you all very much.